Great, thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to today's LDP module, which is Client Management Best Practices, led by Ted Wheeler. Ted is a PhD candidate in Management, Leadership, and Organizational Change, and as a retired lieutenant colonel, is a combat-proven leader with a combined 36 years of military service and private sector experience, with progressive levels of leadership and responsibility in the engineering and construction industry. He is a practitioner scholar in the areas of client relationship management, branding, targeting and sales, program and project delivery, and contract management. The combination of a lifelong learner, professional credentials and training, 4 decades of experience, and a passion for coaching and mentoring brings in a unique skill set in connecting theory, learning, and practice to Ted. Please welcome Ted Wheeler.
Thanks, Jimmy. That sounded really official. And you actually took my, I want to thank Jimmy and the LDP for the opportunity to do this. It's just a great opportunity. I see some folks that I've been friends with for years, service to our nation, as well as SAME. So thanks again for that. I'm speaking today I have a side hustle as adjunct faculty with Harrisburg Area Community College. So if you're up in the Pennsylvania area and you have any interest, I actually do workforce development, management consulting for HAC as adjunct faculty, and that's where the content and such, you're going to see that. So you may wonder like what the HAC stuff is for. ROE, rules of engagement. Open conversation, it's a seminar. So for folks that have done seminar, the intent is not slide by or death by slides, as interactive as possible. I'd ask you to kind of keep most of your questions in the chat box. And we're going to do chunks here. This is going to be a primer, meaning I'm going to go in kind of a mile wide and an inch deep on 4 things. But as we go, if there's any questions, please ask them in the chat box, like Jimmy said, or raise your hand and stuff so we can go. And again, it's a seminar, so share ideas, ask questions. That's the best way to learn. And the end goal, learn at least one thing that you take out of here. Anybody that teaches, if you don't do that, then you're not doing your job. Also, it's easy. Everybody muted everything. But as far as parking your cell phones, if you need to multitask, that's fine. But I am going to roll, and we started on time, and we're going to finish on time. Jimmy gave a quick a short bio, and I guess the key thing that for me is the practitioner scholar. So I have never, until I got my side hustle as adjunct faculty, I've always been doing something. I was in the Corps of Engineers for 20 years, and I've been doing private sector work now for 15 years. But practitioner scholar for me really means it taps into what my passion is. So I have a passion for connecting theory, learning, and practice. And we'll talk a little bit about how you do your passion, but that's what excites me. That's why I love coming to work. I'm actually doing a case study at one of our Milcom projects down at Fort Gordon, and it's a great opportunity to constantly learn new stuff. I will do a shameless plug. There's the LinkedIn, my LinkedIn hyperlink. The slides, even in the PDF version, has several embedded hyperlinks, so I'd ask you to use them. That RG icon may not look too familiar to some folks, but that's called ResearchGate, and I am in the throes of finishing my dissertation. I just had my my chair approve my proposal, chapters 1 through 3, and I'm getting ready to do research. So if you are in the AEC industry in the Northeast United States and you're a non-managerial employee, meaning that you're not a boss of someone, and you're interested in possibly participating in my research, that link will take you to to that and give you an opportunity. So I'd love to talk with you. The agenda, my brother used to talk about P3, passion, purpose, plan. I got to start every course with at least a quick touch on that. And then we're going to cover 3 subjects: client management, time management, and crucial conversations. I've got about 15 minutes of content for each, and that allows time to ask questions. The slides, as we go down through them, at the bottom, you're going to see hyperlinks and notes and stuff like that. There's tons of extra content in here as you have time and as you have interest that you can do. So that's the agenda. Ikigai. Japanese concept. Basically, the Ikigai in Japanese, the 2 symbols, there's 2 symbols. The one symbol is life, and the other symbol is to be worthwhile. And I would offer that it's really, what's your reason for being? So when you can take, like I showed over here, when you can take your passion, what you absolutely love to do, and you can tie it into what your purpose is, then you get a win. My brother used to say he didn't have to go to work, he went to fun, because he got to do emergency ops at the Carlisle Army War College. And for him, that was his passion, and he was able to make it his purpose and get paid for it. I've got some hyperlinks at the bottom, but if you're interested in a little more information, you can do that. The first one's a video, and the other 2 are references. So I can't always got to start that without. If life's too short to work for a crappy boss or be unhappy in your job. In fact, I'm writing a dissertation about that right now. So we'll start up with the formal part of it, client mapping. For folks in the group, I read down through some of your bios and such. There's a mixed bag of both military, private sector, mixed bag of hardcore engineers, project managers, client managers, BD, on the sales side. So there's a good mix in this class. But generally speaking, when you go to an organization, they have some system to manage your clients. And I'm actually working for a construction company. We don't have a CRM, a client relationship management database. So when I came, I had to find some way to manage my clients, my contacts, and my activities in order to create leads and opportunities. I'm a sales guy. I came to the company to do sales, and that's what they asked me to do. So the hyperlink down here is actually to a TED talk. That's TEDD talk, TEDD talk, not TED talk. But that's a recording that I did for the Baltimore district during Mega Maryland on the client mapping details. So you get a little bit more information if you're interested in that. But the key thing with client management, like I said, you've got clients, you've got contacts, and you've got activities. How you connect with that client is different. For a lot of us, SAME is that avenue because there's a lot of firewalls up in the federal industry, and rightfully so, particularly with contracting that have to be up. So SAME provides an opportunity to connect with federal clients. So I have this template. The next one is an example, and it is it's a little bit of an eye chart, but it's actually it's my client map for the NSA. When I took over my job was to get LeadCorp into the secure work market, and I had a coach, I had a guide, Randy Weinmiller, walked me through a bunch of stuff, but then I put it into practice where I took this template and then build it for each of these organizations. Again, if you got a CRM, I've done Microsoft Dynamics, I've done Vision, Deltex Vision. Even with really high-end CRMs, getting client maps out of a CRM can be a little cumbersome. So I just cut to the chase and developed these client maps. And the system actually took a course on complex decision making back in 2017, and had to get a mind mapping system, and found this this tool in AOA. So this hyperlink will take you to AOA. I think for about 80 bucks a year, you can get a subscription, and it's up in the cloud. So I'm going to take a quick break here. I'll shrink this down. So this is AOA up in the cloud, and I've got a series of client maps. You can see I've done USACE, IC, non-IC, and such. I'll pick USACE, and I grew up in the Baltimore district as a young captain, so I'll click on this one. But what this allows us to do is map out your contacts, who you know, and then as you create activities or engagement, I keep track of those things. Again, if you had a CRM, a lot of that functionality would be there, but that engagement or those activities with those clients are a way to do it. And that in itself is great, but unless you turn that activity into leads, and then hopefully leads are developed into opportunities, then it's for naught. And then what I do in the Baltimore side on the procurement, I find out what they buy and how they buy it, so I know which systems to track. I also I keep track of their forecast. And then down here are my leads and opportunities. So I'm going to stop there. I'll shrink that back down. And I'll take a breath there on client mapping. Any questions, Jimmy, so far in the group, or any questions from the group on client mapping?
Hi, Ted. Not so far, but you're doing good. I think that Mike Dara pointed out, I would like to see another use of mind maps, which is another tool that was used in a previous module. It's just a way to outline the client needs against mapping them to leads and opportunities.
Absolutely.
If you have any questions, that will be the time to mention them before Ted moves on.
Roger. So, but wait, there's more. So that that hyperlink drops you. I've got 3 slides at the back of the slide deck, which are actually, because mind mapping is the process. Client mapping is just the application, how I use mind mapping, because sometimes it's a little crazy when you try to keep track of complexity. So Mike, to your point, I've got that in the back of the slide deck, and there's some videos, there's some YouTube videos and a couple references.
We have another question, which is actually a good point based off of what you're saying, from participant Matt Madison. Do you share this with your team, or is this your personal mind map?
Roger. So yes, so I work with 2 JVs. I share it with them, and what we do is we just have one person in their company pays I think it's 85 bucks for a subscription, and it is collaborative. So in fact, a picture speaks 1,000 words. So can I see it up here? Yeah, so if I go in here, I'm working on a project. Oops, click too quick. I'm working on a project right now with 10 different people, and you can see up at the top of your screen, I have shared this with 10 different people, and this is a workflow document control for my company, how we do our systems integration and stuff. So I created this. I created workspaces. This is actually this is a workflow document. I share it. The beauty of this, I love this little tool. You can, where's it at? I can, even though it's kind of complex here, I can scroll through the slides and walk them through. In fact, I have a meeting with my leadership tomorrow morning, and we're going to talk business strategy, information management. Also, all these segments are basically process groups for what we do as a construction company. I break them down into processes, and then I list, here's our BD, there's our funnel. I'll get to the fun stuff, program management, project management. So this tool allows you to do kind of complex stuff, but then you can present in groups. What I've also done is part of this is to create a learning module. I'm a big CSI guy, so I've actually got learning libraries, and there are hyperlinks that come up in the path, and I keep notes in there, I keep hyperlinks in there. So AYOA is much more than just client mapping. I talked a little bit, let me stop presenting. Let me turn that off. But I have to work with a bunch of folks, and I'm able to connect with them, give them assignments, and then they drill down, they log in and drill down on their specific section and work on it. Same thing with client maps. I work with 2 different JVs. I have one BD contact in each JV. They have a login, and then they're able to go in and say, who does Ted know at Baltimore? Who do I know at Baltimore? And it gives us a collaborative way to keep track of that stuff. All right, so let me close this. Let me shrink that down and go back. Any more questions?
Nope, all good, Ted.
Okay, all right. So if you're in sales, if you're doing BD, that's one application of it. From current slide. The next application, once you get a client, our GSE Lead Corps JV last September was lucky enough to win the job order contract down at Redstone Arsenal for the FBI. And when we did, since I put the book together with our team, and I was the pursuit manager, I ended up being the program manager. So one of the first things I did is I had mapped this client, but I knew them superficially. I didn't have relationships. I met a couple folks. Once you actually get a client, the best way to keep a client, it's a program, it's a 5-year, $35 million program. I'm the program manager. So I wrote the program charter because it's with a JV and it's not just Lead Corps. And then I had to write the program management plan. Part of that is as we identify who our stakeholders are, to be able to, I call them color code them or whatever. I like doing color codes. So I took basically what I thought my client map was and have further developed it. And in my program management plan, I've got laid out, and you can see the quadrants there. It's just a simple way to manage folks because you can't talk to every person. Even if you're the program manager, that doesn't mean I get to talk to everybody. So then what I basically did was took my client map from the FBI and the slides, you'll see, the words are small, but basically I've got anybody that is high power and high interest, which I have to manage closely, they get red. And then what we do is we assign those people. So the KO and the COR, my program executive manages the KO and I manage the COR. And then at the project level, my program manager from the FBI, my project manager on site manages Mr. Barnett, and then my task order managers interact with the FBI project managers. And that's basically the direct line. And all I did was take my client map, flipped it over, and now I'm learning and developing relationships with these folks. And oh, by the way, you have all kinds of other stuff. I didn't know that, well, I did. There's installation that for security, for safety, for environmental, there's end users. And then what this allows me to do is manage stakeholders as I manage this 5-year program. So same thing on that. That's just a link to AYOA, and I don't own stock in it. but I don't have a CRM, so it helps me do this kind of stuff. So I did want to mention that drill down application. Once you get a client, make them a stakeholder, and then you want to keep them, do good work, get more work, is the motto on that. So I'll stop there. So that's the first chunk of stuff that I wanted to talk about client management. I'll take a quick pause. Jimmy, anything to catch up for Q&A?
No, I think you're good. We're about 3:20. You're good.
Roger. So Tyranny of the Urgent. Tyranny of the Urgent is well, in fact, I'll use my example. Mr. Blake and I worked together in my previous company, and we used to do work for the Philadelphia district, and we had an opportunity on a project. We actually had bid it as part of a design build team and didn't win it, but we were on a contract that gave us the opportunity to really provide extension of the district's staff. And our branch chief that we work with had an issue. He had a FOOSRAP project, a radiological project that was having some issues, and it was basically a rub between the construction contractor and the district, but it wasn't to the point where it had broken down too far. And I went, and all I had to do was I listened to a couple of their meetings, their progress meetings. I just did a case study. I went and did a site visit, listened to what they were doing, listened to how they interacted, looked how the superintendent interacted with the QC or the QA on the ground, and basically observed as a case study for about 1 to 2 days. And then I broke folks down and did individual interviews so that I got perspectives of everyone. And it didn't take very long. And I figured that basically they had kind of lost focus where they couldn't do what they really needed to be doing. So some people will say, hey, that's a Covey thing. That's Covey the elder. And actually senior to Covey, the elder, is Charles Hummel. And he wrote a little booklet called Tyranny the Urgent back in '94. And then about 3 years later, he wrote another book called Escape from Tyranny the Urgent. And essentially what it lays down is the 4 quadrants. So you're thinking yourself, how does this apply to client management? Well, I would offer time management as part is threaded across everything, whether you're in sales, whether you're in production, or whether you're with the federal government. How you manage your time is absolutely critical. And what I found out was that at this project site, they were living up in Quadrant 1. Now, I'll tell you, Quadrant 1 is important. I'm not saying deadlines aren't important and crises and stuff like that, but if you live up in that quadrant, you will get nothing done. Quadrant 2, which is important and not urgent, is actually some of the stuff that you absolutely got to take care of. So I'll use as an example my FBI program for the JOC. One of the first things I did after we got the award and then got a contract award and did our post-award conference with the FBI was I sat down and I drafted out my program charter and my program management plan. I worked with my program executive and I worked with my project manager and my project coordinator, and then developed basically a document, a roadmap of what we were going to do. And I do this all the time when everybody's hair's on fire and the COR is fussing about something and the submittal's backed up, and whatever it is and there's crazy going on, I always just stop and say, what would we do if we had a planning document that told us what to do when this situation comes up? I get a chuckle now because that's what I do, and I go back and take a look at it. I don't read it all the time, just like a project management plan. You don't read it all the time, but it is a great opportunity to take a breath and see what's going on. Plus, yellow bus theory. I'm a military guy, so you can come and go. What happens if something happens, you get hit by a yellow bus? If you don't got a planning document in place, that would be an issue with whoever's picking it up. So this vision, mission, planning, clarifying values, relationships, process improvement, all this soft, squishy stuff up in Quadrant 2 gets blown off a lot because it's not, if you end up living in Quadrant 1. I will give a plug for Quadrant 3. This is absolute. So if you want to know what deception looks like, Quadrant 3 is deceptions because it is not important. It is urgent. You got to take phone calls. You got to do emails. You got to do reports and stuff like that. However, if you let it manage your day, then you will quickly lose control. I'm not even really going to mention Quadrant 4 except it's just a waste of time. You want to do that and recharge your battery, do that at lunchtime. If you exercise, if you get lunch, whatever you do, find those times to do that break. And that stuff's important, but it's not really important at work. So I know Jimmy put a note in there. So if you've got more questions, so Tyranny the Urgent is time management. There's a hyperlink down here that takes you to a white paper actually that Covey's group wrote on this. So your Einstein window. For me personally, my Einstein window, and I'm a retired Army guy, so my Einstein window is between 5:30 and 8:30, Monday through Friday. And the rationale with that is I get up early, I do what I put the coffee on, and I plug in and I do what I need to do personally during that block of time. And I protect my Einstein window. If I've got to read some report, if I've got contract documents that I've got to go through, I block that time out. And you've got to block it because if you don't block it, somebody will take your time. So I put that up there. This Einstein, this little hyperlink down here is actually LinkedIn did a great little article about protecting your Einstein time. And that does that because that's your most effective time for you. Whatever your you time is, you need to protect that. Because if you're living in Quadrant 1 and if you go from meeting to meeting, like I don't like to plan meetings hour to the hour. I try to do 50 minutes and have a block because people need breaks and stuff like that. But we'll talk a little bit about time blocking in the next slide. So protect your Einstein window. Time blocking. I mentioned this. So if you look at your calendar and your calendar has a bunch of white space, most organizations, somebody in your organization is going to look at that and schedule you to be in a meeting or to do something with you. If you don't, I'm not a big advocate of blocking your entire day. If I got to do something, I don't block the entire day, but I'll block 2 or 3 hours from 5:30 to 8:30 when I have my me time, my Einstein time, when I need to do work. And then that lets folks know what I've got to do, what I physically have to do to make the teams that I'm working with more effective. We talk about time blocking, and we talk a little bit about schedules, but a good exercise, a self-assessment on time blocking is take a look and do a journal. So keep track on a journal, on a piece of paper, of how you spend your time for a day, a couple days, Monday through Friday. But if you have lost control of your schedule and you feel like all you do is live from meeting to meeting, do an assessment, possibly take a look at making time blocking as a technique to manage your time, protect your Einstein window, and regain control of your calendar. So let me stop there. So time management, questions? Anything from the chat box, Jimmy?
Nope, you're all good, Ted. No questions thus far. They might be coming in as you're following through with content. So,
Gotcha. All right. So if you got a question, please feel free to do it. We are at the bottom of the hour and right on time. So I am gonna switch to the next section, which is basically crucial conversations. And I am I'm a big advocate for trust in organizations, and I'm gonna hopefully this works. I've got about a 3-minute YouTube video I'd like to play, and this is Covey the Younger, MR, talking a little bit about what if you could see trust.
Do you know what makes a man sexy?
Yep.
You're like most guys, you think. It's looks, or it's money, it's style, hype.
There we go.
Never has there been more required of leaders and organizations than there is today. Expectations are higher than ever. Change is faster than ever. And the pressure to perform is unrelenting. And at the end of the day, you're still accountable for results. For many leaders, even good leaders, it seems like everything, even the simple things, take longer and cost more. So what's missing? Engagement, collaboration, innovation, leadership. After working with thousands of teams and organizations all over the world, we have come to know this. Most organizational performance issues are actually trust issues in disguise. The simple, often overlooked fact is this: work gets done with and through people. Organizations are made up of an infinite number of human connections, and those connections are held together by trust. That's why there is nothing more impactful on people, their work, and their performance than trust. You can see the symptoms of low trust everywhere. Like a virus, the symptoms show up as disengagement, lethargic execution, resistance to change, and lack of collaboration. But what if you could see trust? Not just the symptoms, but what if you could actually see trust? What if you could see the level of trust in an organization? What if you could see the level of trust in your organization? And more importantly, what if you could see the level of trust within your own team? What would you notice that you don't normally see? You'd see that even on teams with good, honest, capable people, counterfeit behavior diminishes trust and undermines performance. And once you see it, the destructive impact of counterfeit behavior becomes clear. But here's the tricky part. Trust begins with you. It starts with your own credibility. In the same way that you can behave your way out of trust through counterfeit behavior, you can also learn to intentionally increase your credibility and behave your way into trust. In fact, there are 13 specific behaviors found in every collaborative, engaged, high-trust, high-performing culture. In order to compete in today's world, creating a high-trust culture is not just a nice-to-have, it's a necessity. It is the foundation of all high-performing organizations. To survive and thrive, leaders need to inspire their people and lead teams that are agile, collaborative, innovative, and engaged. You can unknowingly ignore, underestimate, or neglect the laws that govern trust, but they will not ignore you. We've spent the last 20 years developing the framework and process for creating the one thing that drives all organizational performance. We're Franklin Covey, and we know trust. Trust connects to so many other competencies.
So, what if you could see trust? You talk, you hear Covey's premise that basically organizational performance issues are often trust issues. And it's the old emotional intelligence mantra: trust begins with you. And then you can behave your way into trust. I'll use a practical application with the contract that we did with the FBI down at Redstone Arsenal, my first pack, my contracting officer, my KO, basically got up and wanted to know where my 5-person team was that I promised him in the proposal. This is a week after we booked the contract, we booked the contract, and then within 48 hours before the end of the fiscal year, booked 20 projects for worth $2.1 million, all in 48 hours from the time of getting that contract. So we had done cartwheels to be able to get the contract in place and to do the first chunk of work, the first 20 task orders in an accelerated manner. He came out and he wanted to know, where are your people at? Because you told me you were going to have 5 people. He also said, hey, I see too many LeadCorp people in the room and on the line. Where's my GSE? Where's your GSE partners? This isn't one of those pass-through JVs, is it? And that's how I started the pack with my KO. So he was really happy we took care of him and helped them book $2.1 million of FY21 funds. But he was really interested in where's the people that you promised me, and I want to make sure this JV that I awarded this contract to, this small business JV, is a real JV. So I took that client map, I was jotting notes, I assigned our project executive connected with the KO, and then I told Chris Russell, hey, it is your job to manage this guy, because I need you to get to check in with them on a weekly basis, however often you need to do it. And I need to make sure that he trusts us. We, over the next 3 months up through Christmas time, behaved our way well into trust. We had a couple times where, you do the trust deposit, or you do the deposit in the trust account, and you're doing a bunch of them, and you do one thing that takes a withdrawal, and the trust vault goes down to 0. So those kind of things, you've got to manage that. And for us, that stakeholder map allowed me to break down a complex organization, make assignments to individuals to manage clients. If you don't manage clients, clients will manage you, and they'll run you ragged. This is not just with federal, this is in any industry. So this gives you that ability to do that. So I'd ask you, what if you could see trust? We're not going to put those little cell phone bars on top of your heads, but I think that's a great idea when you do your self-assessment and you take a look at your teams and such. For me, mine was client-driven, and I had to behave my way into trust with a kind of a hostile client for about a month. But then once we got there, once we gained his trust, I was able to go down to the COR, to the project managers, to the installation staff, and do a lot more. So I'll stop there. Jimmy, I see a bunch of, are they questions or comments in the chat box?
Hi, Ted. Yes, Taylor had a comment about wanting to read the 13 actions that build trust that were in the video, including right, wrongs, extending trust, and what the other 13 and the other 11 were. Eric was kind enough to put them in the chat, and it got me thinking to ask this question as you were giving your example just now about the actions that you took to build trust with your own client, and it seemed to be tied back to your stakeholder map. Is there any way for you to tie them back to the actions to build the 13 actions to build trust that you put in place and in motion in your own example?
Correct. So for the link, that hyperlink in the slide deck, in the PDF slide deck, that hyperlink is active, so you can go pull that. And then I'll forward ahead. This is another Covey thing that I absolutely love. What if you could accelerate trust? And there's a graphic here, or a YouTube video, but it is as simple, and I tell folks this all the time: declare your intent, signal your behavior, and do what I said I was going to do. So my project manager on my FBI project, He likes to overpromise and underdeliver. And I didn't know that, but he started doing that early on. So I'd be making all these deposits in the trust bank for my client. My PM would get on a call, promise something, and then not deliver it. And then all those deposits that I made in the trust bank, all it took was 1 or 2 withdrawals, and it's not a 1-for-1 exchange. In fact, it's exponential. So I can do 10 good things, do 1 bad thing, even though it's not illegal, it still doesn't build trust, and I lose everything in that trust bank. So that is where in military, when we did presentations, we were always taught, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. And it is as simple as that, where in an authentic way, just tell them what you're going to do, your behavior, and you can't fake it at all. So your behavior, did I follow up that email? Did I send that report? Did I schedule that meeting to address an issue with something? And did I actually do what I said I was going to do? The 13, there's an infographic here. That infographic will give you a self-assessment on those 13 things. I won't pull it up now, but it's basically got those 13 actions, and it's got a line down the middle, and it helps you self-assess where your teams are. And you can print that thing out and use that little tool to assess your client. Just go to a meeting. Go to a meeting and sit there and listen and watch and kind of see. If you're in charge of the project team, go to a progress meeting and do it. If you've got a client meeting and do that, it is thoughtful, because you take a minute to breathe and actually measure where you're at with trust. And again, there's a lot of, it's not the answer to everything, but doing what I said I was gonna do solves a lot of problems. And then so there's your infographic. Actually, it's an infographic with the 13 aspects, and it gives you a little metric to do some self-assessments. And then this one, that's just another graphic reference. So again, when you get this slide deck, all these hyperlinks are active to this stuff. So that is, any other questions?
No, thank you, Charlie, for sending that PDF with the 13 aspects to our emails. And then Mike just had a point: how to get your team to get away from the overpromise and underdeliver mindset.
So what I did is I fired my PM. I said, you're not allowed to talk at my progress meetings until you correct your behavior. And I kiddingly did it. I didn't do it in front of anybody. It was a private conversation. But I said very quickly, all it took was 2 progress meetings. I figured him out, and I had never worked with him. He was given to me on a matrix team. But once I figured him out, I'm like, dude, you got a problem. You overpromise and underdeliver consistently. And that's not the way I'm going to do business on this program. So how you do that, whether you're a program manager, a project manager, whether you do it in sales, you actually got to kind of check yourself. And this goes back. All this stuff is connected. This goes back to your time management to protect your Einstein window. So you've got time to be, as you're at your creative peak, you have the ability to focus your creativity at doing what you need to do. And it could be contracts, it could be a proposal, it could be a report. I don't care what it is. But when you're on your game at your most productive time and you protect that Einstein time, you can get ahead of the game. So from the overpromising, what was it? 3 weeks ago, I actually gave a seminar to an offsite for the Baltimore district, their PPMD group. A buddy of mine runs the branch, and I know a bunch of the folks when I was there as a young captain that I used to work with. I gave a class, and one of the things was exactly what Mike talked about. How do you get people on your team to stop overpromising and underdelivering? And that is a perfect transition to crucial conversations. There is a video, there's a YouTube link here, but it's too long, so I'm not going to show it. There's a resource here that explains crucial conversations, and this is a book. And in your notes, I give you the references, APA 7 compliant, if anybody's checking. I give you the references to Crucial Conversation book and a couple infographics. So, Mike, the question as far as being able to do that, and what Shelley asked me to do was say, hey, I got clients or I got project managers, some young ones that came from other organizations that maybe grew up in the Corps, other ones that grew up in the Corps, but maybe learned some bad habits. How can they have those tough conversations with our clients? And these are clients that hand them big bags of money to do work. And so one of the things that we focused on was having those crucial conversations. You could call them difficult conversations, crucial conversations. The author of the book, Crucial Conversations, I think nails it because he lays out basically, and this is all, emotional intelligence or know yourself. So it's always about work on me first. You got to get unstuck. You got to start with the heart, and you got to master your stories. So if you have a crucial conversation that you've got to do with a client, you got to make sure if it's a meeting, if it's an hour-long meeting and you got bad news, you don't wait till the end to give the bad news. You're going to do your welcomes and let the leadership do their welcomes, and then you're going to take that problem and you're going to talk about that problem. But you're not going to let the problem take over the meeting. You manage it, you address it, you talk what was learned from it, and then you move on. Or we'll have a follow-up meeting that will allow us to do. I use the parking lot anytime I have meetings. If there's something brilliant that comes up from the person in the corner that I never hear from, but this person raises their hand and said, hey, Ted, do you ever think about doing it this way? And I just look at this person and I'm like, where were you at like a week ago when we were struggling with this? So the ability to be able to tap into that stuff is great. I can't always solve it, but when I'm in a meeting, I'll put that over in the parking lot and I'm going to go get with that person. I'm like, hey, I want to get with you after that meeting because you just helped, you had a brilliant solution, but I have to think a little bit on it. So again, work on me first. The dooring. This is the whole, and I do a whole seminar on high-performing teams and high-performance communications and stuff like that. And there's some really neat stuff about it, but it is no kidding. Understand your perspective and understand the client's perspective. I feel I have a unique skill set as in the private contracting world because I was a design manager, I was a section chief, I was a COR. So when I communicate with my COR, and now I've been a contractor for 15 years, when I interact with my COR, I have the ability to look at their perspective. And I do this all the time. I have young field staff that just want to hammer the QA or hammer the client's project manager on stuff. And I'll often say, hey, did you ever think about this? And from their perspective, they're waiting on something for us for a submittal, for an RFI, but they've got a process they have to do themselves that doesn't happen immediately. So I do this all the time is while that conversation is happening, I hopefully don't have to break up an argument, but I make sure, did you ever think of this? Did you ever think of it looking at it that way? So during, you can't get dug into your foxhole and then just mow everybody down. You got to take a look at that during. And after, same thing, move to action. Who does what by when? My boss, Bill Sorrentino, did some consulting for PSMJ and wrote this cool little article called, we call it our bye-bye list. So when we do meetings at the end of our bye-byes, even if Bill's not in charge of them, he'll speak up and say, hey, we're going to do bye-byes. So bye-bye is by whom and by when. So what we do at the tail end on those buys, this little hyperlink, I think that little hyperlink there takes you to Bill's article. But that's kind of a neat way to, even during a very busy meeting, to kind of close it and make sure that you've done that and you move to action. Or, hey, I put 2 things in the parking lot. Jim, Jane, I'm going to get with you separately in a separate meeting. But I hear your comment and your frustration, but I want to talk to you individually to handle that. Or that was a brilliant idea. Where were you 2 weeks ago? I'm going to get with you to do that. So that is basically what the model looks like. And the crucial conversations principle, I will, it's got like this little infographic. I actually print these out and get them laminated. So that hyperlink will send you to my personal Google Drive where I have this stuff. I bought it, I paid for it. I'm allowed to use it for academic and instruction purposes. So in the context of this class, go download this thing and print it off. And it's to me, it is a desk reference. If you have a problem with, you get frustrated with a client, you get frustrated with your project team, and you just got to kind of slow things down, this little infographic gives you the opportunity to do that. And it does. It starts up front to the simple thing with those 7 principles. So I'm going to shy that down there. And I got 352. Jimmy, what questions do we have from the group?
Great points by Eric. Crucial Conversations by Patterson, Granny, McGillen, and Switzer is another good book. And Mike points out that they still use bye-bye lists in Norfolk. Bill used to work there as well, so that's great.
I will let Mr. Sorrentino know that, sir. The other thing that I'll mention, so in the project or in the slide notes, I've got all the references in APA 7 approved format. I've got all the references for any of the books that I've used as references and stuff like that. And this is a good one. This is a good one to do to read. So this is a good package. All right, so okay, my takeaways there, safety first. If you work in a hostile work environment, and I know what that looks like. I mean, I spent 20 years in the military, so I was in long enough to have those bosses that were absolutely tyrants, but then I also learned, okay, well, maybe I need to understand that person, why that person is that way, and I need to manage my boss. So I always start with the facts. I'm an army planner. We live on facts and assumptions. So that is what you really start with. All the innuendos and assumptions and stuff like that, that's great. Finding a mutual purpose. So if a meeting gets out of control and you're arguing about something, the mutual purpose, hey, the bottom line is we have to install that pump before Friday, otherwise the system isn't going to work. So we can sit here and argue about it all day long. And now I'll go back to a construction trailer, to a interaction with a subcontractor and the QA who didn't like what they put in. And you gotta get folks to calm down and take a look. Hey, here's what's in the specs. Here's what's in the drawings. This was in the contract documents. This is what we've got to do. We all agree to it. We know there's issues causing us friction, but how do we do that? Watch your words. And this is the old, be no do kind of thing, where watch what you say and then what they hear. You sender, receiver, 2 different perspectives. And then one thing that is absolutely critical, listening skills for a leader. Anybody that's been in the class, anybody in this seminar that has been through, I don't care what it is, private industry classes and such, listening, active listening, and paying attention to your client, your team, nonverbals, and such, they are absolutely critical for you to get that metric on that. And that infographic with Covey's 13 aspects of trust, that gives you a way to put a mark. You can put it in the plus column or the minus column and do it for whatever. Self-assess your team, self-assess yourself, how you handle the truth. And then again, self-assess for success. And that book, those infographics, give you a couple key things to do that. Okay, I'll go back here. I'll stop now. I've got 3:56. Jimmy, what questions do we have from the group so that we can stay on task?
I think we're good, Ted. We got 4 more minutes, so we're good. No questions.
Okay, any alibis from the group? You want to unmute yourself. Here, let me do this. I will. I don't want to hang up. I just want to stop sharing. Let me blow my my chat box up. So now I've got everybody. If you want to ask questions, you can unmute yourself, unvideo yourself so we can see, and then we'll just go around the room for the last couple minutes or so. If you got any questions. I see everybody's faces. You all look engaged. Hey, Susan.
Yeah, I really want to thank you, Ted, for leading this. With this being the last module in this class before they get into their capstone presentations, there was a lot of really good tie-ins to previous modules that this class participated in. And with your real-world examples and how to apply a lot of those things that weren't touched on in previous modules is a really good way to tie it all together and see how to put it into practice. So I wanted to thank you.
And like I said, for the group, there's way more content in those, and they're all the hyperlinks are active. Each of those, actually, those modules are like hour-long seminars by themselves. So I just try to do a primer on those subjects, but give you, if you're a self-study person, to look at a video. Most of my videos are podcasts. They're 3 to 5 minutes. They're not a full-length movie. So that's what I try to do for a lot of the YouTube videos, because it needs to be quick and catch your attention and move on.
I want to hear from somebody in the class about their either a crucial conversation or how they manage a client or a project.
I think in the 13 behaviors you sent over, the first one, talk straight. I've definitely seen people spin in position to try and be in the same wavelength with clients before. So I think that everyone kind of knows that it's better to just be honest and be yourself, but especially as young leaders, I think it's pretty natural to want to be aligned with people you're trying to engage with. So I thought the counterfeit, which is like that, not doing it the wrong way, but like you're doing it the wrong way on accident. That's a good extra column of these are things that feel like the right way, but you're really doing it the wrong way. And even like transparency, like I think a lot of the times as leaders, we don't always get to show the full big picture, but it's important that you have that lock of shared vision, so it's not a hidden agenda, but it's the true agenda, and you just give the amount of detail that is needed. So I thought that was a good link that you sent out.
And for the group, so my dissertation is on the effects of authentic leadership on individual occupational well-being. And it has nothing to do with productivity. It has all to do with things like self-awareness, internalized moral perspective, what's your compass, balance processing, and what Matt was just talking about is relational transparency. If you go to a meeting and you got talking points, clients will sniff you out. They will call you out, because if you're just given the talking points that was in your proposal and you don't actually deliver them, it takes but 2 progress meetings and they will hammer you on that. So great call, Matt, on that relational transparency. And even with my KO was kind of hostile to me. And then I started getting up in his face because I could go with him I could banter with him all day long, but my program executive said, I got him. I got the KO. And he did. And he used to Shanghai my meetings. and waste time in my meetings. He doesn't do that now because I manage the KO. I didn't do anything wrong to them, but I managed him as a key stakeholder, the key stakeholder that can give verbal orders, and you got to do stuff when working on a federal contract. But now we've managed him, and he's not disruptive, and his team then is communicating instead of him going from the top down. Now we have some laterals going, and that trust is built not only with his team but also with him.
That's great. Thank you, Ted. We're at the bottom of the hour, so we have one more question to ask. Otherwise, we'll stop the recording and move on to class business. Do we have another point to engage?
Brian
Great.
has
Well,
one in the chat, Jimmy.
Oh,
He just said about,
yes,
unfortunately, the
Brian. Oh, good point. But Brian, I don't know. Are you still on? I don't know if you want to, talk us through this comment. Brian W had a point. Unfortunately, the opposite. There's some crucial conversations that I've been avoiding at work, which I think happens to us all at times. Brian, are you able to unmute yourself?
Yep. Yeah, this was encouraging for me. It's kind of an awkward situation because I'm not in a position of authority, but I know that what this person needs to do, and I'm going to be the team lead shortly. So I know a lot of things that they need to fix, but it's hard to have that when I'm not in an official position of authority. So, anyways, this is encouraging for the future, especially when I do have authority.
Yes, sir. Yeah, you got to manage your clients, manage your boss. Otherwise, they'll manage you just like your calendar. All right, Jimmy. Subject to that, I'm going to close. Mr. Kaiser, sir. Is it me?
Rick, you have to unmute your audio, please. Janine, can we unmute him, please, remotely?
Yeah, he may just have might have a mic problem.
Who do I need to unmute?
Rick Kaiser, he's unmuted.
He's unmuted. He is not muted at this point.
Roger. All right, Mr. Blake, back to you, sir.
All right. Well, Rick, please feel free to engage with Ted on Google Classroom. Ted, thank you very much for your module today. This was very informative and a great tie-in. Janine, I'm going to ask if you stop recording.